Covidian Cult is an article written by American playwright C.J. Hopkins, published in October 2020. Hopkins argues that we are in the midst of a global totalitarian movement, the first of its kind in human history, and that the Covidian Cult is made up of those of us who have drunk the Kool-Aid of the official COVID narrative. A narrative that goes something like this. The World Health Organization and global governments are working tirelessly to bring an end to the greatest plague in human history. Lockdowns, regular closures of local businesses, and medical mandates like social distancing, masks, and limits on movement are effective tools for preventing overflowing hospitals and epic death. Our only hope of eradicating the deadly virus are the new and safe vaccines and the speed by which we inject them. Anyone who questions this narrative is a COVID-denying conspiracy theorist who threatens our chance of winning this war. Members of the Covidian Cult trust their appointed health experts and trust the mainstream media. If you're anything like me, however, you're worried that the real global threat are these brainwashed bozos. A cult used to be a small band of weirdos hiding on a commune away from the prying eyes and interference of family members. But as Hopkins argues, in the age of COVID, this paradigm has been flipped on its head. The dominant culture is now the Covidians, and non-believers like me are the minority, tiny islands on a crazy planet. Hopkins says that the key ingredient of totalitarian societies and cults is mass conformity to a psychotic official narrative. This psychotic official narrative is based on paranoia and is not bound by logic or reason. The cult is faithful to the narrative, and this faith cannot be shaken by facts. Our cult indoctrination began in early 2020 when bizarre videos leaked out of China. People were dying while walking, and little armies of hazmat-suited medics were seen scurrying around trying to keep up with the dropping dead. Isolation facilities, overcrowded hospitals, and drone footage of barren cities. We were told that a deadly virus had made the supernatural leap from a bat, not a dog or a bunny, a bat, into a human, and that this unscientific event occurred in a dreaded and overcrowded wet market in a place called Wuhan. The virus escaped on a modern plane and supposedly almost wiped out Italy before it was declared a global pandemic by our new guardian of health, the WHO. The brainwashing campaign had kicked into high gear. For the first time in modern history, our businesses were shut down because of a virus. We were ordered to hide in our homes where our TVs, radios, and phones would terrify us with predictions of death in the millions, starting with the exaggerated models out of London by the infamously inaccurate Dr. Neil Ferguson. It can't be understated that this initial lockdown had a serious impact on our mental equilibrium going forward. You are non-essential, give up your livelihood, hide in your home, and await our instructions. Wash your hands like someone with OCD. Since the initial lockdown, our minds and bodies have been under months of stress. It is the greatest psyop in human history. We've been bombarded by 24/7 propaganda. Freezer trucks, mass graves, emergency field hospitals, and the slogan, "Protect our frontline workers," had to be reconciled with a bizarre epidemic of hospital nurses performing choreographed dance numbers in these overflowing hospitals, a phenomenon that continues to this day. Next came social distancing, a fundamental tenet of the COVID narrative. It was based not on viral science, but on a form of childlike logic. The planned payoff? The unconscious fear of everything and everyone. No matter how healthy they look, they could be a ticking time bomb. Limits on gatherings was a cult mind control staple called milieu control, a technique to limit the cult members' contact with the outside world and prevent contradictory discussions. These limit numbers on weddings, funerals, playgrounds, and restaurants have been continuously randomly changed since the beginning by design. It's the constant flip-flopping of rules that is deceptively innocent but hugely effective. Cult leaders often ask their followers to denounce previous rules in place of new ones. It creates cognitive chaos. The point of the narrative is not that it makes sense. The point of the narrative is that you unquestionably have faith in it. By attacking the mind with a constant stream of never-ending facts, the ability to use logic and reason is further shut down. A campaign of endless slogans and phrases, including wartime-loaded language, has been pumped into the zeitgeist to guide our opinions and fill any cracks in the narrative. From the manipulative use of guilt to absurd scientific studies, including these more recent headlines. We have been bombarded by endless conflicting directives, wild speculation, and outright lies. The end result is that science and facts no longer matter, not to the Covidian cult. The pandemic should be over based on the CDC and WHO's own documents. 2020's death numbers describe a year on par with previous norms. But the COVID narrative is a psychotic official narrative. It is a matter of faith, not facts. The danger is a not-so-distant future with two types of people, the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. If we are not members of the Covidian cult but dutifully blend in by following the rules, if we do not open our businesses and remove our useless masks all at once, then the Covidian cult will drive our car off a cliff. And unfortunately, we will have paid for the gas.
And I've covered on this channel many times, someone I know covered on another channel many times over, discussing New, the clothing line, of course, that featured children wearing clothing, talking about the New World Order. Of course, all types of occultic symbols in the clothing. It was clothing for gender-neutral clothing. Had pictures of the Baphomet on their Instagram account, all sorts of stuff that just show you that this ties in with the New World Order agenda. Of course, Celine is one of these puppets. Now, if you haven't heard, Celine Dion has been diagnosed with stiff person syndrome. And I want to cover this because there's a trend recently over the last year where lots of celebrities are coming out and being diagnosed with these rare neurological disorders. And people are out there are like, oh boy, I feel so sorry for them and all this stuff. And it's hard to actually believe if these people are really sick or not, because when it comes down to the magic potion, of course, a lot of us don't believe that any of these people actually took it. But what they can be doing, which is what I think they are doing, is they're trying to normalize rare syndromes, because more and more people are getting diagnosed with these very rare diseases that are neurological diseases that you've never heard from or heard about in the past. And more people are getting it now. So they don't want people to start to become suspicious as to why they're getting it. So they start normalizing these things, saying, oh, it's normal to have this. Oh, it's, it was once rare. It's not anymore. Celine Dion has it. Or someone like Bruce Willis, who has aphasia, which affects your ability to communicate, another neurological disorder, right? Or the other stuff that I've talked about in the past with people like Justin Bieber, who have face paralysis and the side of their face is not functioning, which we've seen as well. So this is the story with Celine Dion. Obviously, look at the common themes here at Bruce Willis, Celine Dion, and how they're making these things that you've never heard of, like aphasia and stiff person syndrome, more normal in our society.
It's really heartbreaking. The disease so rare that it affects only 1 in a million people. And because of that, doctors really don't know what causes it. We know it's incurable. And Celine Dion says for now, she's going to have to stop singing to focus on her health.
I've been dealing with problems with my health for a long time.
An emotional Celine Dion in a heartbreaking message to her 5 million followers on Instagram.
And it's been really difficult for me to face these challenges.
The singer says she's been diagnosed with stiff person syndrome. It's a rare neurological disorder that causes severe muscle spasms. Dion says her symptoms are so advanced it's difficult for her to walk and sing.
But I have to admit, it's been a struggle. All I know is singing. It's what I've done all my life. And it's what I love to do the most.
You get these abnormal signals that causes the symptoms, muscle rigidity, achiness, stiffness.
Dr. Santosh Kesari is a neurologist at Pacific Neuroscience Institute in Santa Monica.
If we can't get the symptoms under control with these immune-based approaches that I mentioned, then patients become more dependent on not only the medications, but the caregiver support.
The Grammy and Academy Award-winning singer now has postponed and canceled her upcoming tour dates.
I miss you so much. I miss seeing all of you, being on the stage, performing for you. I love you guys so much. And I really hope I can see you again real soon.
This afternoon, the family of Bruce Willis announced on Instagram that he's been diagnosed with a medical condition that affects his ability to communicate.
News 4's Linda Beccaro is live in White Plains with what we've learned so far about this condition, Linda.
And Natalie, as you mentioned earlier, lots of people hearing about aphasia for the first time. And as the director of neurology here at White Plains Hospital told me, it is a very serious diagnosis. Surprising news in an Instagram post from the family of Bruce Willis. Our beloved Bruce has been experiencing some health issues and has recently been diagnosed with aphasia, which is impacting his cognitive abilities. As a result of this, and with much consideration, Bruce is stepping away from the career that has meant so much to him. So what is aphasia? We asked Dr. Boris Chulpayev, director of neurology at White Plains Hospital.
Aphasia is a specific term that refers to ability to understand, ability to speak, and the combination of both.
Dr. Chulpayev says there are 3 types of aphasia, each with a different impact on the brain. For Willis, it could affect the ability to understand words. A different type affects the ability to speak. A third type affects both.
Mixed type of aphasia is when you cannot understand or able to speak at all.
1 million people in the U.S. are diagnosed with aphasia, with 180,000 new cases each year. Aphasia can have a gradual onset if the cause is dementia, but in other cases it can come suddenly.
Most common causes of aphasia are strokes, traumatic brain injuries.
Dr. Chulpayev says in those cases, therapy can help limit cognitive loss. Regardless of type, early diagnosis is key.
Aphasia is a very serious diagnosis, and the sooner you seek medical attention, the better outcome might be.
Hollywood reacting to the news late today with posts on social media, including Jamie Lee Curtis saying, "Grace and guts, love to you all." And Rita Wilson, "My heart goes out to Bruce and all of the family. So thankful you shared this with us, keeping you all in our prayers." MRIs and scans, particularly a PET scan, which they have here at White Plains Hospital, can help diagnose, but it's unclear at this point what type of aphasia Bruce Willis has.
Obviously, my body's telling me I gotta slow down.
Asking fans to keep him in their prayers, pop superstar Justin Bieber unveils a stunning diagnosis.
Obviously, as you can probably see from my face, I have Ramsay Hunt syndrome. As you can see, this eye is not blinking. I can't smile on this side of my face.
The 28-year-old taking to Instagram Friday, days after postponing 3 shows on his 2022 Justice World Tour.
What is Ramsay Hunt syndrome?
Ramsay Hunt syndrome is really, just simply put, shingles in the facial nerve.
The syndrome, doctors say, is often treatable if caught early. They add it's more common in people over 50, not young, active pop stars.
So those are just a few, and we've heard more and more celebrities have come out now. They're not going to be acting anymore. They're stepping out of the limelight. But really what this does is, again, it normalizes rare disorders. And by normalizing it, it makes people less suspicious as to why suddenly more and more people are getting these neurological disorders. We all know why. We all know why there's a spike. If you go to the CDC website, I mean, they openly are talking about a spike in Parkinson's disease as if no one should be suspicious as to why. They're openly talking about Alzheimer's and these other diseases, all neurological problems that no one should be suspicious of. They should just be like, oh, okay, I guess a bird took a dump in the sky, it pooped onto a car, and suddenly the particles from that are just causing more people to get Parkinson's. I mean, what do people actually think would be causing a spike in these things? What would people actually think is causing men's testosterone levels to drop so dramatically that nobody can have kids anymore unless they get do IVF, and even that isn't a guarantee. Nobody's suspicious of these things. And one of the reasons nobody's suspicious is because when they subliminally normalize rare disorders like this, rare neurological disorders like this, when they start to do that, then people just automatically are like, oh yeah, I heard about that. Celine Dion had that. Bruce Willis had that. Oh yeah, it's just on the rise all of a sudden. Oh, it couldn't be because of something, a certain something. And of course, it couldn't be because of those towers that are popping up all over the place, which are just quietly dumping radiation right at your skull. You know, remember the stories that many of us have covered over the years when the cell phone first came out and they actually did tests and people were like, oh, wow, we're finding that more people are getting brain tumors because they're on their cell phone too much. Well, just imagine it times 5 million, trillion, because now everybody's got a cell phone and not everyone's on 1G or whatever it started with. Everyone's on 5G. But these are things that you can't link, and they don't want you to link to what they're doing. They don't want you to link to certain things that are going into certain bodies. None of it. They want to make sure that you just think that this is normal and you go along with it. And by having celebrities have it, they want you to sympathize with them, not ask questions. And then when you hear that somebody has it, then you can relate the story to the celebrity and you won't think any further than that. That'll